Hey guys, what's up, Zags here. Welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be looking ahead to the 2019 British Grand Prix. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks. Of course, we come off a back-to-back Grand Prix at France and Austria. We've had 2 weeks off and it's back for the British Grand Prix. And we're going into the last 2 Grand Prix after this for Germany and Hungary into the summer break. So 3 big races here, very important in the championship battle. So, we'll look back at the Austrian Grand Prix. Many see this, including myself, as the best Grand Prix this season. I'd say we've got 2 standout Grand Prix this year, Austria and Bahrain. And I'd say maybe you could say Canada also was pretty decent thrown in there as well. But Austria and Bahrain definitely stand out to me as the best 2 Grand Prix we've had this season. And of course, 2 out of, 9 or so Grand Prix isn't exactly the best record of like really good races or just good races, but nonetheless we look forward to this British Grand Prix and have our fingers crossed that this could be another thriller. So speaking of that Austrian Grand Prix, of course none of us really went into that weekend expecting we were going to see a Mercedes struggle as much as they did, and it was actually a weekend of a lot of struggle for both Mercedes drivers. Valtteri Bottas had a big crash in FP2. Hamilton didn't really have the pace all weekend. He was there or thereabouts, don't get me wrong, but then a penalty in qualifying hindered his chances of going for the victory in the Sunday of the Austrian Grand Prix. And it's the first time this season Lewis Hamilton has ended off the podium at the end of a Grand Prix, so that's quite big news in itself there. It showed sort of the dominance of the cars so far. It's actually the first time this season Hamilton hasn't finished either first or second in the Grand Prix. That is very crazy. So as we said, Bottas didn't have the greatest weekend either, but he managed to get a podium. But the big battle was for the victory. Charles Leclerc versus Max Verstappen. Incredible. Seeing 2 of the young guys in Formula 1 in the big teams really just dueling it out for that top spot was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Of course, some people have had the critics saying Verstappen was a bit too forceful, a bit of contact here and there. Wasn't really needed in that battle with Charles Leclerc, but I think I'll just sit on the fence on this one. It provided interesting racing, and I think we've just got to move on from it. I think Charles Leclerc accepted there wasn't a penalty given. I mean, I know there hasn't been too much consistency this season, but in terms of penalties, but still, nonetheless, we'll take that as a good race, even though maybe some people, probably Charles Leclerc fans, will say that it should have gone the wrong way. I wanted Charles Leclerc to win that race, nothing against Max Verstappen. I really think that Charles Leclerc deserved the Grand Prix victory this season. I guess many would say that he should have won the Bahrain Grand Prix. He deserved to win that race. He didn't. Some will say he deserved to win Austria, and it's a big shame he hasn't won either of those races, but I think it's very likely he's going to be scoring a Grand Prix victory before the end of this season. But then I guess you've got to say a lot of things have got to fall into place for that to happen. But nonetheless, we look back at the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. Interesting for the championship. Bottas obviously closed up on Hamilton. Not that much. He's still 31 points behind. He needs to kick into gear, Bottas, and get some good results here before the summer break, because we go after the summer break and we get some tracks where Hamilton is very good. Belgium and Italy particularly, I'd say Hamilton is very strong at. Singapore maybe not so much, so maybe that could be a chance for Bottas to get some points back there. And Russia we know is a good place for Bottas as well. But British Grand Prix, Hamilton's been mega there. German Grand Prix, a bit on and off, but he's always been pretty good there. And Hungary, another track where Lewis Hamilton has been fantastic. So Bottas really needs to outscore Hamilton in these next 3 races to make sure the championship is alive. So very exciting times going ahead to this British Grand Prix. So of course, home race for myself, exciting times. Hopefully Silverstone will throw up a good event, but I've got to be honest, I'm not seeing much past a Mercedes dominated race once again. I mean, we have to look at Austria as a bit of a anomaly in the season so far, let's be perfectly honest. I think a lot of things fell into place to make sure that Grand Prix happened. Hamilton grid penalty, overheating Mercedes, those things really made sure that it was going to happen for Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc this weekend. That weekend I should say. So nonetheless, we hope that something will happen this weekend. Not to have a go at Mercedes, but we hope that something will happen in this Grand Prix to make sure it's closer at the top. I just want to see an exciting battle for the victory between multiple teams, which we got to saw in Austria. And as I said, even though it didn't end the way some people wanted, it was still an exciting Grand Prix. We've got to put that as a big fat tick in this season, because so far it's not been filled with many ticks. So, what am I talking about? The British Grand Prix. So, as I said, Mercedes, I see this a return to form for them. I see them coming back to the top and going for the victory once again. Who knows whether they would have solved any of those issues that they had in Austria. I mean, they've been pretty sharp with getting on top of issues throughout their whole time in Formula 1 over the last, less than 10 years? How insane is that? They've won so many races in less than 10 years. Absolute madness. So, yes, Mercedes, I expect them to return to the top. I don't think it's going to be a massive difference. I don't think it's going to be quite France level. I mean, I know, obviously, France was one of the more boring Grand Prix this season, but nonetheless, I think we were really just hoping that Mercedes don't have so much of a gap. If they still have a gap, fair enough, they deserve it. We just don't want them to be pulling out half a second a lap on anyone else, because we want to see some more exciting races. But that's nothing against Mercedes. Once again, I keep saying it. I mean, of course I want to see exciting races between multiple teams, but at the same time, I can't say anything really else, because let's be perfectly honest, they've just been fantastic. They have been absolutely great, and you can't really hit them for doing that. And it's the other teams to catch up. It's not for Mercedes to slow down. It's Ferrari, it's Red Bull, and big teams like McLaren and Renault. They need to be challenging and putting the pressure on Mercedes, but they're nowhere near right now in typical pace. So, nonetheless, I think we'll probably see another Mercedes race, basically, where they get a big haul of points. But nonetheless, I'll move on to Ferrari. They should be closer. I honestly feel that, especially closer than they were at France. I mean, I know Charles Leclerc nearly got Bottas at the end, but Bottas had some big issues apparently towards the end of that race, so that was part of the reason that happened. But I think that we've just got to see some more interesting strategies from Ferrari. I mean, I know the current one-stop races don't exactly leave much choice, but nonetheless, I think that Ferrari can be a little bit more bold with their strategies going forward. I mean, they need to be really at this rate, because you look at the championship right now. Hamilton's on 197, Bottas is on 166. Okay, that sounds like a lot. And then if you look back to Max Verstappen, Vettel on 126, 123 respectively, that's quite a big gap. 40 points between second and third, and then 30 points between first and second. So, you do the maths. 71 points between Hamilton and Verstappen, as we've got not even quite to the halfway point of the season. But nonetheless, I think that with the current point system like it is, Hamilton DNFs from 2 races, as unlikely as that is, you see someone like Verstappen or Vettel right back in the championship, and if they get the wind behind them in the second half of the year, who knows what Red Bull and Ferrari could do. But I'm still of the belief that Red Bull will probably end the year as the second best team on the grid. I mean, of course, the initial start of the year I thought the Ferrari were going to be the quickest car, but that's not turned out to be the case. But because of the development curve of Red Bull throughout every season basically they've been in Formula 1, I can see them being the closest challenger to Mercedes by the end of the year. But as I said earlier on, I think Ferrari should be closer to Mercedes than they were in France. Whether that's enough to beat them out on track legitimately, I doubt it. Through a different strategy, there's definitely an option there. So Ferrari, they need to be a bit more bold with those strategy calls. But as I said, there's not too much room for leverage really, because of the current way the rules and tyres are. So I do feel like Red Bull might slip back this weekend. I mean, just behind Ferrari. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I feel like Red Bull had a slower car than Ferrari in the Red Bull ring. But something just lit in Max Verstappen at that Grand Prix. He was absolutely fantastic. Well, obviously many people have their critics, including me. I mean, I did critique Verstappen in his early years of Red Bull. He was making mistakes, but he really has matured. It's cliche to say it because everyone's saying it right now, but he's really learned over the last year and a half. He's turned into an absolutely fantastic driver, and actually over the last couple of days, Christian Horner's come out and said that he's better than Lewis Hamilton. I'll leave that in the comment section down below. Ponder your thoughts and opinions on that. Do you think Verstappen is better than Hamilton as of right now? We're not talking the future, right now. Is Hamilton worse than Verstappen? Let me know in the comment section down below. But definitely food for thought. I mean, that was a fantastic Grand Prix from Verstappen in Austria. I guess it's just the thing with Hamilton is the consistency is always there. I mean, I guess it's always a bit hard to tell with Verstappen because he's sort of in a race of his own at some points, racing for 5th or 4th place. But nonetheless, I think that there's definitely good enough arguments to say that Verstappen is very close, if not as quick as Hamilton right now. So I think Ferrari and Red Bull will return to their 2nd and 3rd positions behind Mercedes. But then we look to the midfield, the exciting parts throughout the whole season so far that's had some fantastic battles. McLaren, I think they are now best of the rest. So they've really come on strong over the last sort of 3 or 4 races. Okay, they had some, I guess some difficulties. For example, look back at Canada, and we had Carlos Sainz losing the points positions right at the end. Norris deserved some points in Canada for sure, and then ended up retiring. But nonetheless, I think we say that McLaren are definitely best of the rest right now. I mean, they're sitting on 30 and 22 points respectively, and then we look back to the next team, which I'd say is Renault, and Ricciardo's on 16, and so is Hülkenberg. So it's quite a big gulf in points there. I mean, nearly double the points for Sainz over both the Renault drivers. So really interesting to look at that, and the Constructors' Championship, of course. But I think McLaren are doing a fantastic job this year, and they need to give themselves a big pat on the back. The bold decision to hire Sainz and Norris has really paid off well as well. Obviously, you look at Sainz and you're thinking Red Bull probably made the wrong decision about who they decided to put in that seat for 2019. But I'm not going to keep going on about Gasly because it's obviously getting quite a lot of stick recently. But at the same time, I feel like Gasly should be shown the year out. I'll probably make a whole video on this and my reasonings why, but I don't feel that he deserves quite the amount of hate he's getting. Of course, he deserves critics because he's not performing, but at the same time, I do want to see him being given a little bit of time, even though I would like to see Kvyat in that seat. So it's a bit of a, I'm really not sure what to say, but I think Gasly needs to be given some time just to be fair on him. But it's a cutthroat business, Formula 1. You don't deliver, you're out of the seat. And that's the way it kind of should be. You can't be in a top seat and underperforming. So, yeah, I got sidetracked there. McLaren, I think, are the best of the rest right now, and that's pretty evident through their recent results. Renault, their form is so strange. They go from being best of the rest in some races to being 14th, 15th. It's like, how does that happen? How does that happen? I mean, I know they haven't really scored, they've only scored one 14th, they haven't scored a single 15th this season, but nonetheless, it's interesting to note that their form has been all over the place. I mean, you look at France, for example, Hülkenberg's 8th, and you go to Austria, and he's 13th. Very strange, very strange. Same with Ricciardo, he finished 6th in Canada, and finished 12th in Austria. It's all over the place. But nonetheless, if they can just sort out that, Renault looking strong, and I think they obviously had some reliability issues at the start of this season. They've had more issues than, the McLaren team, for example. So if they can capitalise on the points when they're there and don't end up DNFing, I think they've got a real chance of actually challenging McLaren for best of the rest throughout the whole season and maybe picking up a few lucky points. But I think we look at them now as probably the teams I've mentioned so far, definitely the top 5. There's a bit of a gap back from those top 5 now. I'd say you've got the top 3, then the 2 evolving Formula 1 teams, and then 4 midfield teams, and then 2 back-end teams. That's kind of how I see it right now. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on that in the comments below, but I feel like it's getting that way. McLaren and Renault are certainly breaking away from that midfield. You think about Renault though, do they have some inherent car issues just on certain tracks and certain sort of setup? I don't know, it's very weird, but maybe they'll come back at the British Grand Prix strong. Even though I'm not, I don't know, I feel like it shouldn't really suit them, but who knows. If France, was one of their better races this season, it wasn't. Canada, I should say, was one of their better races this season with the big old straights. I mean, I don't really know what to say. Their form is a bit weird. Alfa Romeo, they came back in Austria, but I kind of feel like it was a bit of a one-off. I mean, Giovinazzi is really starting to come on now, which is really good to see for him. I think their race pace isn't quite there. Their qualifying pace definitely seems to be pretty good, and it's good to see Giovinazzi actually doing well in qualifying. Of course, they're picking up places when other cars are having issues, but in the race, their pace isn't, in my mind, without looking at all the stats in front of me, it doesn't feel like they have the best race pace. They seem to have a bit more of an issue getting into the top 10 easily in the race. I mean, they're comfortably in the top 10 in qualifying, it kind of feels, and then you get to the race and they're struggling a bit more. So is that tyre issues, even though the Sauber's always been classic, Alfa Romeo I should say, classic good on its tyres? I don't know. Of course, it's a long way since we look back to those years like 2012, 2013, where the Sauber was the team to beat in terms of tyre saving. I don't know, but personally, I think that Alfa Romeo might struggle to score points in the British Grand Prix. But Kimi Raikkonen, he's Kimi Raikkonen. He seems to score points wherever he wants to, basically, right now. He's a bit of a legend, we all know that. And he's doing a great job in Alfa Romeo. And Giovinazzi coming up strong as well is great to see. Toro Rosso, I feel like should be a little bit stronger here than the previous races. They've not exactly had a great run. The last 2 Grand Prix, no single point. The best finish was, out of those last 2 races, was 14th in France for Danny Kvyat. I think both cars really struggled in Austria, if I remember correctly, which is not great at the Red Bull-owned circuit. But I think they maybe come to the British Grand Prix and see a chance of maybe a point or two, especially as we'll speak about in a minute, Alexander Albon's decent record around this circuit. We move on to Racing Point. They seem to have lost their way somewhat, I'd definitely say, even though Sergio Perez is sitting 13th in the standing, sort of middle of the midfield in terms of points. He hasn't scored a point since Azerbaijan. His positions have slowly been getting better. It was 15th in Spain, 12th in Monaco, Canada and France, and 11th in Austria. So you see it's coming towards the points a little bit, but still he's really dropped off the boil since the first 4 races. He's had, well, the first 4 races were decent, you'd say, and then the last 5 really have not been particularly good for him, even though Austria he was very close to the point, right behind Giovinazzi. But nonetheless, Racing Point, with all this money coming in, maybe are possibly seeing the issues caused midway through last year, where they were going obviously into lots of financial issues. I feel like that's definitely starting to affect them now. It's a bit of a delayed effect, yes, but it's still going to have to affect them at some point. And maybe it was just that development that sort of had to stop midway through last year is now sort of catching up to them, and they're really struggling, because their last points finish was Lance Stroll in Canada. Stroll also scored in Azerbaijan, as did Perez, but still 2 points in the last 5 Grand Prix is not good for a team that was challenging for best of the rest for the last couple of years. They are going to be really struggling to finish anything above sort of maybe 7th in the constructors this year. There's a gap forming ahead of Alfa Romeo, so they've got to really get on that fast. So Haas, they're in a bit of a rut with their race pace as well. Of course, we've seen some fantastic qualifying performances. We especially look towards Kevin Magnussen, who's had a fantastic last couple of Grand Prix in terms of qualifying. If I remember correctly, he's been strong in the last couple of, I don't know, was he strong in France? I can't remember now, but he was really strong in Austria, that's for sure, qualifying pace. And then Kevin Magnussen just drops like a stone in the race because the race pace in that car just isn't there. I got a lot of critics pre-season about my thoughts about Haas, because I honestly thought they were going to struggle this year. Not because they're a bad team in any way, just because the competition around them. I think if you sort of isolate them, they're doing well as a team. They're doing fantastic considering the budgets they've got behind them. If you watch the Magnussen and Gunther Steiner podcasts over on the F1 YouTube channel, you'll understand what a sort of challenge they've got underneath them, and what they're doing with the resources behind them is absolutely mega. But there's only a certain amount you can do with a certain amount of money, and I think that Haas might be somewhat hitting the boundaries right now with what they can do. So maybe they need a bit more investment going forward to make sure they can get back into the midfield consistently. I mean, they obviously came out in 2016 and 2017 with a pretty decent car, and 2018 was also pretty good, but 2019 maybe they've sort of seen the reality of Formula 1. Scored 16 points this year. They haven't scored a point since the Monaco Grand Prix. So what's going to be happening with them? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on that in the comment section down below. Finally, we get to Williams. Upgrades apparently coming soon to their Formula 1 team. Austria certainly showed there's a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, fair play to Mr. George Russell. He's been absolutely fantastic this year. He's definitely been going under the radar, but he's doing a mega job. And considering all cars finished at the Austrian Grand Prix, he finished 18th. Doesn't sound great, let's be perfectly honest, but he beat Kevin Magnussen, which is really quite interesting. A guy that started 5th place on the grid. And the race pace was there for Williams. They were there or thereabouts in the midfield. They were a bit slower, yes, but nonetheless, it was good to see they were closer. I know it's a short track, so that kind of plays into it, but still, really good to see for the British team that have been struggling over the last couple of years. So now for my top 10 for the British Grand Prix, I'm going to go with Alexander Albon to finish 10th. You thought I was going to say to win, didn't you? But I'm going to do it in reverse order from now on to try to build up to it. So I'm going to say Albon 10th, Hulkenberg 9th, 8th Norris, 7th Sainz, 6th Gasly, 5th Leclerc, 4th place Verstappen, 3rd place Bottas, 2nd place Vettel, and 1st place Hamilton. So you might be thinking, why on earth have I put Albon in them? Because obviously they've been struggling in the last couple of races. But you know, Albon's had a pretty decent run at the British Grand Prix track, and I remember correctly, he won the feature race at Silverstone last year. He didn't have the best of luck in 2017. It didn't all go his way, but he won the feature race in GP3 the year before that as well. So it's a good track for Alex Albon. Of course, he grew up in the UK, doing a lot of racing in the UK when he was younger, doing Formula Renault and stuff like that as well, and Formula 3. He knew what he was doing around this track, and he's done a good job, and I think that this could be a good track for him, so that's the reason why I put him 10th. Then it's just sort of like, you know, all the Renaults and all the Mclarens and all the top 3 teams, because that's just the way it is, except Ricciardo. I don't know why I put Ricciardo out of the points. Don't question it. I have no idea why. You know, I'm just that good at predictions, really. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on my top 10 in the comment section down below. Of course, leave your top 10 as well as your thoughts on some of the points raised in this video, because of course there have been a couple of little controversial points in there as well, of course, including Albon in the points. But also, is Lewis Hamilton worse than Max Verstappen? That's what Christian Horner has implied over the last couple of days. So, you know, throw down a comment down there in the comment section. It's a spicy remark to be saying at this point of the year, especially as we go into the British Grand Prix. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy the Grand Prix this weekend, and I'll see you guys all around soon. Have a fantastic day. It's been Alex. Goodbye.